Everyone, thank you so much for coming. I hope everyone got a program, and this is our first event with people in a room. It's exciting. Thank you so much for being here. So welcome everyone. I'm Jocelyn O'Zolins. I'm the head of reference at the library. And tonight we're going to celebrate the winner, runner-up, and all the entrants of the inaugural Bliss Morehead Poetry Grant program. And poetry itself, which is fitting since April is Poetry Month. We're going to hear readings from the winner and runners-up in the grant competition, followed by the Shelter Island Poetry Project, a program that Bliss led and curated for many years. After Bliss's passing in 2020, longtime Shelter Islander Mike Zisser wanted to honor his late wife and established a 10-year grant program with the library. Let's acknowledge Mike Zisser. As you expressed, your hope was to make poetry more accessible to more people, and that is what Bliss would have wanted. We received many wonderful entries, which included unpublished poets ages 17 to 90. Special thanks to judges George Held, Charity Roby, and Irene Cornell, who are Charity and Irene are here, for their time and expertise. And now Karen Kerr is going to say a few words about Bliss.
Hello, everybody. You know, I spent the whole morning trying to think of a summary of how to describe Bliss. And I didn't want to write a long thing because I know we have a lot of nice things to do this evening. And I came up with a couple of just short words that really I thought captured her. And the first one was, if I had to define Bliss, she was a brilliant scholar. She just had a brilliant mind. And of course, she was a poet. And as a poet, she had a laser ability to look and read poems and just dive right into the very depth of the poem. I mean, she was a true scholar. And she was a terrific teacher. And one funny story, I was always sort of arguing with her, and she was a very serious teacher, that I wanted to know the background of the poet before I tried to understand all these difficult poems, particularly someone like William Carlos Williams, Jory Graham. I never understood either one of them. One day, a long time ago, I said to Bliss, I really have to read the bios of these poets to understand the poetry. And she looked at me and didn't crack a smile, and she said, no, you do not. You do not do that. You just dive into the poem. And I tried to push back, because I can be pushy, and I asked her a second time. And she just looked at me very serious. She said, no. Do you know what no means? So she was a terrific teacher, and as I say, a brilliant mind. And if she were here today, I think she would recognize JoAnn's poem as one of those perfect poems, because that was Bliss's goal, always to get the perfect poem. And I think JoAnn did a pretty perfect poem. So thank you, and everybody enjoy tonight, because we're going to hear some nice poetry.
So Charity, do you want to
Sure.
say a few words?
So I'll just, and Irene is also going to say a few words, our other judge who's present. So we had over 40 poems. It was there were a lot of entries. And reading them was joyful. It was, even if the subject matter of some of the poems was tough, of many of the poems. I mean, the themes were delight and despair, and a lot of despair was described. But the delight was very delightful. One of the poems that was not a winner, or was not one of was not the winner, nor was it a runner-up, described our sails billowing white as cumulus, which I thought was a beautiful phrase. Another poem that I was very, very happy and that filled me with delight was a poem about, well, it was about dying, but the poet described lobster tails, checking the mail as the things that they would miss, expectant suitcases, the time once thought wasted. These were really extraordinary phrases in an extraordinary poem. And Irene, I think, is going to also, I have one other. The third poem that I'm going to just read a few lines from was describing the act of being a poet. We are painters without paint. mixing the colors in our mind. We are painters. That's the reason why we write.
Do you want to say anything, Irene?
Yes.
Give you my hand here to help you up here. There you go. That's all right.
Oh,
There you
Grant,
go.
yeah, all right.
I just want to say I wish I could say to all the people who wrote poems and entered this competition, I wish they were all here to read their poems, and I wish Bliss was here to hear them all. She'd be so happy, but it would take all night. There were, as Charity pointed out, nearly 40 poems. So much delight and despair. Such darkness, such light, such openness and truth. I felt as if I were handling the heart and soul of each and every poet. That is an awesome responsibility. I started out thinking, you have to separate the poem from the poets. Judge the poem by its merits. That's what Bliss would do. That's what she would say to us. She used to chide us during our gatherings. Put away your cell phone. Don't be Googling all the information about those poets. Of course, Bliss had an advantage there. She already knew everything about all the poets. But can you really separate the person from the poet? For example, take 17-year-old Daniel Torres. He's a junior at East Hampton High School. His poem, like so many others, did not make the cut. But there are some personal details to recommend him. For example, he wrote his first poem after being inspired to write by listening to Amanda Gordon's reading at Biden's inauguration. He's fluent in Spanish and English, composes poems in both languages. His favorite poet is Emily Dickinson and writer Elizabeth Warren, both born in the 1800s. Imagine that. In his poems, he uses nature as a metaphor. The poem he submitted is entitled Rose. You think fragrance, beauty, serenity? Nope. The words that begin each of his 6-line stanzas are fractured, broken, decimated, gone. Rose could be a metaphor for war, devastation, but with an ending of redemption. Daniel writes at the end of his poem, the sky rejoices in her profound glory, hymning melodies over the sacred canvas she beholds, where the future is her paint, and the imagination is her painter. As noted, this boy, Daniel Torres, didn't win, but he's a winner, along with everybody else who submitted heartfelt poems to JoAnn at the library.
Thank you very much. And now Thomas Milton, we're going to do the, yes, please.
Can I come up?
Yes. We'll read Janet Culbertson's poem.
Yes, Janet said she'd be a little bit delayed getting here, whether she's arrived since. but she had asked me to read her a poem, which is a beautiful poem about the Galapagos tortoise. The title is Galapagos Tortoise, the Exile. From stillness you roll, inevitable as lava, a slow stone grinding the brush, a tank seeking a war. All that power to subdue the grass, that horny beak, grim mouth, to eat the frailest, sweetest grass. Unknowing a fight, you always stand and bear, confront with tired eyes lost marbles that roll and blink. Armored, weighted, you carry on your back the coffin of your brain. Your shell, dinged, cool, mapped with lines you never see, does not feel my hand. Polished as rock your toes, small plates weigh each leg, ground beads in your skin. Ancient encrusted deity, withdraw your head, rasp and hisp the music of air, played on an accordion of leather-neck veins carved and unpulsed, totem of your will. They say that you can mate with a stone, yet dream of flying snails.
Thank you.
Some of you have read epic poems. I've never had the resiliency to do so. So this is a non-epic poem. It's called Medical Test. I got the call late in the day. The drowning sun was set deep enough so as not to demand the shade of a hand over the eyes. "It isn't there," said the cartographer, with all the authority of a man with books and maps and sea charts, computers and clear satellite imagery. "I'm sorry," he added, with unpersuasive sympathy. "The island you described simply does not exist." I thanked the good doctor as I hung up, but I'm not sure he could hear me over the cries of the seagulls.
And I'll just mention that there were so many good poems. Honorable mentions are for two people who aren't here tonight. Tara May Lawrence for Alive in the Dead of Night, and Laura Lamuscio for The Woods Down the Road. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Joanne Kirkland, winner of the $1,000 grant for her poem High Above. Joanne, please come up. Read your poem.
Thank you. This is an amazing honor. Now to get through this poem. It's called High Above. Down below, a June morning full of promise and tiny local strawberries. A gold dog waits by our door, wondering where I am. Books left open, a bookmark marking my place, the plot forgotten. 19 floors above, I'm tethered to a hospital bed. Bedpans, IV bags, despair, illuminated by buzzing fluorescent light. Down below, twilight filled with flitting fireflies, bonfires, and sandcastles falling into the sea. Up here, iced air fogs the window, blocking out the world. The windows rattle as 2 floors above, a helicopter lands on the roof, another life in jeopardy. I'm 30 years old, too healthy to be here, except for a careless doctor's slipped scalpel and a life undone. Twitchy with fatigue, antibiotics stinging through my veins, turning my arms, wrists, hands purple with bruises, my brain fuzzy and stupid from Demerol, the only thing that can numb the pain, me who hardly takes aspirin in real life. I'm alone, or as lone as you ever are, nurses poking and prodding, disembodied moans down the hall. I live in a fugue state, never quite here. Earlier, as my fiancé told a story, something that happened at his restaurant, I watched a blue dolphin mobile spin in the cold breeze. I'm marooned on a far shore, too weak to swim towards him. When he leaves, I'm relieved, too drained to balance his sadness and mine. Tomorrow morning, a brain surgeon will repair the hole in my head that shoots shards of pain with any movement. He will shave off my long hair from forehead to ear, saw into my skull, lift up my brain, patch the hole, rest my brain back down, and staple my skull back together. A battle scar of metal, a glorified plumber, he calls himself on cleanup duty. Side effects are listed on a clipboard: loss of taste and smell, brain damage, death. Who would accept these possibilities? I need to go home, back to my life, before this haunted hospital bed. I take a deep breath, filling my lungs with artificial air. Exhale, reach for the papers, scrawl my signature, let the clipboard fall. Take me. After my world begins again, moments of joy hard won, I wake in my own bed to the sounds of birds instead of moans. Soft summer air blows through the screen. I sleep through the night. No one wakes me. No bedpans. My dog sits in the sun next to me for hours as I run my hands through his fur, reading his body like a map to guide me back. We walk together a little farther each day, his paws sinking in the soft sand, a tennis ball in his mouth, tail wagging as we head towards the bay. Headaches roar, surge, and fall away. It will take a year to shake off the lasting effects of the deadening anesthesia from 3 surgeries and anti-seizure medicine, laying on my bed for a month in a hospital bed. On an autumn day, I'm dressed in indigo velvet, holding a bouquet of wildflowers, still fragile, still healing. High above the ocean, we stand in the dunes, surrounded by family and friends. The minister holds our wedding bands high, blessing them. My new husband takes my hand, places his gold ring on my finger. My little mohawk of hair blows in the ocean breeze, but the sun is warm as the wind pulls at us, undefeated.
Mike, do you want to come up and help present the check to JoAnn? I can help you.
Michael, take this aside.
Hey, Mike, you
Get a real one later. Calvin Chase would like this one too much.
I think you should take that down
So now we'll go on to the Bliss Poetry Project part of the evening. And it's going to start with Roz Diamond reading the dance.
I think should I come up there?
Sure, wherever you're comfortable.
The Dance by C.K. Williams. A middle-aged woman, quite plain, to be polite about it, and somewhat stout, to be more courteous still. But when she and the rather good-looking, much younger man she's with get up to dance, her forearm descends with such delicate lightness, such restrained but confident ardor athwart his shoulder, drawing him to her with such a firm, compelling warmth, and moving him with effortless grace into the union she's instantly established with the not at all rhythmically solid music in this second-rate cafe. There's something in the rest of us, some doubt about ourselves, some sad conjecture seems to be allayed. Nothing that we'd ever thought of as a real lack, nothing not to be admired or be repentant for, but something to which we'd never adequately given credence, which might have consoling implications about how we misbelieve ourselves, and so the world beyond us, which so often disappoints, but which sometimes shows us, lovely, what we are.
Darkness by John Crow Ransom. When hurrying home on a rainy night, hearing treetops rubbed and tossed, and seeing never a friendly star, and feeling your way when paths are crossed, stop fast, turn around 3 times, and try the logic of the lost. Where is the heavenly light you dreamed? Where is your hearth and glowing ash? Where is your love by the mellow moon? Here is not even a lightning flash, and in a place no worse than this, lost men shall wail and teeth shall gnash. Lightning is quick and perilous. The dawn comes on, too slow and pale, and your love brings only a yellow lamp. Yet, of these lights, one shall avail. The dark shall break for one of these. I've never known this thing to fail.
I Cannot Live With You by Emily Dickinson. I cannot live with you. It would be life, and life is over there, behind the shelf. The sexton keeps the key to putting up our life, his porcelain like a cup. Discarded of the housewife, quaint or broke, a newer Severus pleases, old ones crack. I could not die with you, for one must wait to shut the other's gaze down. You could not. And I could I stand by and see you freeze without my right of frost, death's privilege? Nor could I rise with you, because your face would put out Jesus, that new grace. Grow plain and foreign on my homesick eye, except that you, than he, shone closer by. They judge us how? For you served heaven, you know, or sought to. I could not, because you saturated sight, and I had no more eyes for sordid excellence as paradise. And were you lost, I would be, though my name rang loudest on the heavenly fame. And were you saved, and I condemned to be where you were not, that self were held to me. So we must meet apart. You there, I here, with just the door ajar, that oceans are, and prayer, and that white sustenance, despair.
If you don't mind, I'll read from Stephen Curtis to save a little time if you're coming and going. This is a poem by Stevie Smith, a very short poem. She was born in 1902 and was called back in 1971. She's one of Lytton's most favorite poets and very lauded. The title is Not Waving, but Drowning. Nobody heard him, the dead man, but still he lay moaning. I was much further out than you thought, but not waving, but drowning. Poor chap, he always loved larking, and now he is dead. It must have been too cold for him. His heart gave way, they said. Oh, no, no, no. It was too cold always. Still the dead one lay moaning. I was much too far out all my life, and not waving, but drowning.
First Love by Stanley Kunitz. At his incipient sun, the ice of 20 winters broke, crackling in her eyes. Her mirroring, still mind that held the world, made double calm. When fluid in it ran, there was a stir of music mixed with flowers in her blood, a swift, impulsive bomb. From obscure roots, gold bees of clinging light swarmed in her brow. This beautiful is good. This wonderful is true. Love's large, slow, motherly hands have touched like years. Quietly now, the blind, impalpable lids of prescient selves opening start upon an astral view.
My phone's ringing.
It's not your husband.
It's not my husband.
Somebody congratulate you.
Don't read. This is Vicarious Melancholia by John Cothy. It fills up the space where poems used to be, until there's no space left. It's incessant phone calls, figuring out money and flights to somewhere, nowhere, not knowing what comes next. There's nowhere to go, which is the problem. I think everything's the problem, taking its toll. Diane looked at me cross-eyed at lunch, and I sunk into a depression I recall from 40 years ago. The constant consciousness of helplessness, the constant feeling of inevitability, of the anger at that feeling, of the separateness of persons. Talk is like drugs, repeating what I said each night in the morning and on the phone each afternoon. A different hospital each time, then the same hospital. A fear of selfishness, an imperative of self-defense. These are the boundaries of my life now, the borderlines of my existence for a while. In the midst of life we are in death. Any person's death diminishes me, and yet the fear of death is something one can only face alone. Poetry is stylized indifference, a drawing back from the divide between my life and its negation. Not because it's empty, but because it's full, too full of someone else's. Coming home each day to the message light blinking on the phone, my heart sinks as I press the button, and the dial tone comes as a relief, since I don't know what to do. It's easier in miniature, within the limits of the page, the confines of a single consciousness with the drama all off stage until the phone rings and it starts again.
From Blossoms by Lee Young Lee. From Blossoms come this brown paper bag of peaches we bought from the boy at the bend in the road where we turned toward signs painted peaches. From laden bounce, from hands, from sweet fellowship in the bins, comes nectar at the roadside. Succulent peaches we devour, dusty skin and all, comes the familiar dust of summer, dust we eat. Oh, to take what we love inside, to carry within us an orchard, to eat not only the skin but the shade, not only the sugar but the days, to hold the fruit in our hands, adore it, then bite into the round jubilance of peach. There are days we live as if death were nowhere in the background, from joy to joy to joy, from wing to wing, from blossom to impossible blossom, to sweet impossible blossom.
Anxiety by Frank O'Hara. Is there a sense of something going on? I'm having a real day of it. It was something I had to do. But what? There are no alternatives, just the one something. I have a drink. Doesn't help. Far from it, I feel worse. I can't remember how I felt, so perhaps I feel better. No, just a little darker. If I could get really dark, richly dark, like being drunk, that's the best. That's open as a field. Not the best. But the best except for the impossible, pure light. To be as if above a vast prairie, rushing and pausing over the tiny golden heads in deep grass.
No, it's Karen.
Karen.
I don't have the right list. What's the call?
What the silence said?
Try to pay attention, Karen.
See, now Bliss would tell me I wasn't paying attention.
What the silence says.
I have it if you.
Somebody else have it?
Yeah, I have it. I have a copy.
I'm probably gonna get it now. It's pass or fail in this group. Thank you, Jocelyn. What the Silence Said by Marie Howe. You still believe in borders now? Birds soar over your maps and walls and always have. You might have watched how the smoke from your own fires traveled on wind you couldn't see, wafting over the valley and up and over the hills and over the next valley and the next hill. Did you not hear the animals howl and sing, or hear the silence of the animals no longer singing? Now you know what it is to be afraid. You think this is a dream. It is not a dream. You think this is a theoretical question. What do you love more than what you imagine is your singular life? The water grows clearer. The swans settle and float there. Are you willing to take your place in the forest again, to become loam and bark, to be a leaf falling from a great height, to be the worm who eats the leaf and the bird who eats the worm? Look at the sky. Are you willing to be the sky again? You think this lesson is too hard for you. You want the time out to end. You want to go to the movies as before, to sit and eat with your friends. It can end now, but not in the way you imagine. You know the mind that has been talking to you for so long, the mind that can explain everything. Don't listen. You were once a citizen of a country I don't know. Remember the burning boat that brought you there. Climb in.
This is What Comes by Carolyn Forshad. To speak is not yet to have spoken, the not yet of a white realm of nothing left, neither for itself nor another. A no longer already there, along with the arrival of what has been, light and reverse of light. Terror as walking blind among the breaking sea, body in whom I live, the not yet of death darkening what it briefly illuminates. An unknown place, as between languages back and forth, breath to breath, as a calm in the surround rises, fireflies in lindens, an ache of pine. You have yourself with you. Yourself, you have her, and there is nothing that cannot be seen, open to the coming of what comes.
This is a poem by Douglas Dunn, a well-known Scottish poet born in 1942, a year after I was. On roofs of Terry Street, television aerials, Chinese characters in the lower sky wave gently in the smoke. Nest-building sparrows peck at moss. Urban flora and fauna, soft, unscrupulous. Rain drying on the slates shines sometimes. A builder is repairing someone's leaking roof. He kneels upright to rest his back. His trowel catches the light and becomes precious.
Another Spring by Kenneth Ricksroth. The seasons revolve and the years change with no assistance or supervision. The moon, without taking thought, moves in its cycle, full, crescent, and full. The white moon enters the heart of the river. The air is drugged with azalea blossoms. Deep in the night, a pine cone falls. Our campfire dies out in the empty mountains. The sharp stars flicker in the tremulous branches. The lake is black, bottomless in the crystalline night. High in the sky, the northern crown is cut in half by the dim summit of a snow peak. O heart, heart, so singularly intransigent and corruptible, here we lie entranced by the starlit water, and moments that should each last forever slide unconsciously by like water.
I need support for this one. Jogging with Oscar. I walk McDonald. When I take my dachshund jogging, boys and widows gawk and stop tossing balls or lopping limbs off shrubs. They call and point at long, pot-bellied Oscar, trotting like a rocker horse, tongue wagging, dragging on grass when he hops over skateboards, long muzzle wide, as if laughing, eager, sniffing the breeze. All Oscar needs is a tree like a mailbox, postcards from dogs he barks at night, and odd whiffs he can't place. When he stops and squats, up runs a neighbor's collie, tall as a horse, stalking like a swan meeting an eel, muzzle to muzzle in dog talk, collie tail like a feather fan. Wherever we go, we're not alone. For an hour, a devoted hobbler is on the block. The odd couple, long-legged, bony man jogging along, obeying the leash law, the black retractable nylon sagging back to Oscar, who never balks or sasses when I give the dangling leash a shake, but trots to me, desperate for affection, panting like a dog off to see Santa, willing to jog any block for a voice, a scratch on the back. I've seen that hunger in other dogs. I watched my wife for 40 years brush dogs that didn't need the love he does. When my children visit, my oldest grandsons trot with them into a park, that glossy auburn sausage, tugging and barking, showing off. The toddlers squat and pat him on his back. They touch his nose and laugh, and make him lick them on the lips. Good Oscar never growls, not even if they fall atop him. He was a gift from them. Last Christmas, a dog their pop could take for walks and talk to. Oscar would have loved my wife, who spoiled and petted our old dogs for decades, coaxing them up for tidbits on the couch beside her, offering all the bliss a dog could wish for: a hand to lick, a lap to lay their heads. Well, he's already spoiled, barks at blue jays on his bowl, fat and lonely unless I'm home. But how groomed and frisky he could be if she were here. How calm to see us both by the fire, rocking, talking, turning out the light.
Head Heart by Lydia Davis. Heart weeps, head tries to help heart. Head tells heart how it is again. You will lose the ones you love. They will all go. But even the earth will go someday. Heart feels better then. But the words of head do not remain long in the ears of heart. Heart is so new to this. I want them back, says heart. Head is all heart has. Help head, help heart.
Oh no, I'm like putting the phone down so I can get into it. In the Grove, the poet at 10. She lay on her back in the Timothy and gazed past the doddering auburn heads of sumac. A cloud, huge, calm and dignified, covered the sun, but did not, could not, put it out. The light surged back again. Nothing could rouse her then from that joy so violent it was hard to distinguish from pain.
One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost, that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day. Accept the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last, or next to last, of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster some rounds I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I missed them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster.
So Much Happiness by Naomi Shihab Nye. I think that's how you pronounce it. It is difficult. Let somebody pronounce it. Get another F. It is difficult to know what to do with so much happiness. With sadness, there is something to rub against, a wound to tend with lotion and cloth. When the world falls in around you, you have pieces to pick up, something to hold in your hands, like ticket stubs or change. But happiness floats. It doesn't need you to hold it down. It doesn't need anything. Happiness lands on the roof of the next house singing and disappears when it wants to. You are happy either way. Even the fact that you once lived in a peaceful treehouse and now live over a quarry of noise and dust cannot make you unhappy. Everything has a life of its own. It too could wake up filled with possibilities of coffee cake and ripe peaches, and love even the floor which needs to be swept, the soiled linens and scratched records. Since there is no place large enough to contain so much happiness, you shrug, raise your hands, and it flows out of you into everything you touch. You are not responsible.
Startled into life like fire, a Charles Bukowski story. In grievous deity, my cat walks around. He walks around and around with electric tail and push-button eyes, and he is alive and plush and final as a plum tree. He is alive. Neither of us understands cathedrals or the man outside watering his lawn. If I were all the man that he is cat, if there were men like this, the world could begin. He hops up on the couch and walks through the porticos of my admiration.
Giant Decorative Dahlia by Molly Holden. It is easy enough to love flowers, but these had never appealed to me before, so out of proportion above my garden's other colored heads and steady stems. This spring, though, in warm soil, I set an unnamed tuber, offered cheap, and when August came and still no sign, assumed the slugs had eaten it. Suddenly it showed, began to grow, became a small tree. It was a race between the dingy bud and the elements. It has beaten the frost, rears now 3 feet above the muddled autumn bed, barbaric petals pink quilled with tangerine, turning its great innocent face towards me triumphantly through the damp afternoon. I could not deny it love if I tried.
Haired Things by Kay Ryan. Who had only seen wings could extrapolate the skinny sticks of things birds use for land, the backward way they bend and the silly way they stand, and who, only studying bird tracks in the sand, could think those little forks had decamped on the wind. So many paired things seem odd. Whoever would have dreamed the broad-winged raven of despair would quit the air and go bandy-legged upon the ground, a common crow.
Sorry, I'm having a little balance problem. This is The Dust of Snow by Robert Frost, whom I was surprised to learn was born in San Francisco. And when he was 10, he moved to Massachusetts. And became a real New Englander, although it was a return to the family's roots. The way a crow shook down on me, the dust of snow from a hemlock tree, has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued.
The Orange by Wendy Cope. At lunchtime, I bought a huge orange. The size of it made us all laugh. I peeled it and shared it with Robert and Dave. They got quarters, and I had a half. And that orange, it made me so happy, as ordinary things often do, just lately. The shopping, a walk in the park. This is peace and contentment. It's new. The rest of the day was quite easy. I did all the jobs on my list and enjoyed them and had some time over. I love you. I'm glad I exist. There's some delight.
Thank you, everybody. That was wonderful. And now I think Robin Bennett wants to say a few words.
I'll make it quick. This has really been wonderful. Thank you all. As we know, Bliss's life was cut short. She had so much more to give to her craft and to those who shared her love of poetry, and to her family and friends. I remember Bliss as having a very sharp yet funny wit, an amazing store of energy, and a real zest for life. We miss her, and while we don't know how far she would have gone with her passion for and dedication to the art of poetry, we do know that through her work with you all, she would have touched even more people and inspired them to pursue the practice of poetry in whatever form that is meaningful personally to them. You know more than most people in the world that poetry has the intrinsic ability to bring both the writer and reader to the depths of despair, but also to the heights of delight. And that, your poem. At this moment, I think we can all agree that Bliss would be delighted with this legacy and with all of you here. Thank you, Dad, for making this happen. And thank you to everyone here for making it come to fruition. And we hope many more years that this just keeps growing. So.